Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a B-movie review. Today I'll be having a look at Wizards of the Lost Kingdom, made in 1984. So, Wizards of the Lost Kingdom is a cheapy sort of sword and sorcery barbarian flick. It's really a children's film, this one. There were a lot of these kind of like sword and sorcery, sort of Conan the Barbarian kind of like offshoots in the 80s. And the majority of them are actually aimed at a slightly older audience, but this one, was actually aimed at a younger audience. Now, I actually saw this film way back when it was first released, when I was, when I was very young, and I've just watched it now just to sort of remind myself of it for this review. And I actually I really love this film. But when I saw it, I didn't know then a lot of the footage was actually lifted from other films, primarily Deathstalker and 1982's The Sorceress as well. Those two films particularly made from the same production company, of course, and a lot of footage was used. The initial parts with the sort of like and the more wide shots of lots of soldiers and stuff are all from Deathstalker. And a few of the sort of scenes here and there, especially the one with the sort of the kind of the flying griffin and the kind of witch head warrior fighting there from the Sorceress film. And there's a couple other shots as well. You can kind of tell the shots that were made or the scenes that were made for this film, because they kind of look a little bit cheaper. Now, I'm not saying that Deathstalker and Sorceress are high budget films, but they maybe had a little bit more scope than this one. But I will point out, when I review B movies, I do not judge them in the same way I would judge a standard Hollywood sort of blockbuster film. I kind of have their own set of rules on this. So, but as a film, say it uses the stock footage, fair enough. But let's just look at it as a film. Forget that it's using stock footage. I actually think it's a kind of a fun film to watch, this one. But it is so cheesy and such a sort of like crappy film, but it has a kind of sense of fun, and there has loads of like flaws and loads of logic issues. And the first thing is the story really is about a sorcerer who kind of basically defies his king and sort of takes over his kingdom, and he's like an evil sorcerer called Shurka, who I actually thought was played fairly well. I mean, it's shot in Argentina and has a lot of sort of obviously Argentinian actors, but the guy who played Shurka I thought was quite good and played it fairly straight. And I quite liked him. I thought he was quite a good character. And he kills the king, and the king's kind of good wizard magically transports his little son off, who's probably about 12, 13. And he gives this he gives his son this kind of magic ring, who just as he disappears, he sort of teleports him away, and he sort of drops it just before he teleports away and can't find it, but it conveniently ends up in the sort of the mouth of this gargoyle. Anyway, that's what I mean. It kind of just things like that. Along with his son, he also has like a kind of a Chewbacca sort of pet monster thing, who literally is a man in a carpet, a suit made out of a carpet. So he sends him off out in the woods, sort of away from the sort of castle where it's being attacked, and there he kind of meets wandering barbarian Kor, played by Bo Svenson, and he's kind of the main adult sort of lead in this film, and he looks like he's just not taking this seriously at all, as you probably wouldn't, and the way he delivers his lines is very, very sort of contemporary, and it's actually quite fun to watch. I actually really love Bo Svenson in this film, because he's just so nonchalant and kind of this. He's meant to be this like amazing warrior, but he just doesn't seem to give a shit. And he's just so like lethargic and kind of just wanders around. And when he sort of bumped into sort of the bad guys and stuff, it's just like some of the things he says are actually quite funny, just a sort of like sardonic sort of way and stuff. When they were kind of out in this forest, they kind of want to sort of get back to the castle ultimately and defeat the evil wizard. And this is where again you'll get a lot of stock footage of stuff from other films. They meet a kind of witch who is kind of turned into a big sort of spider monster. That actually has a little bit of almost a paedophile vibe, to be quite honest with you. I mean, there's this young kid and she's almost seducing him, and at the same time, back at the castle, you've got Shurka, the evil sorcerer, who's actually trying to seduce the young sort of princess, basically, who's again probably no more than sort of like 13, 14. And this was made in 1982, don't forget, so those things maybe weren't quite as in the media and stuff as they are these days, so you kind of just slipped under the radar in that aspect. But looking at it now, it's a bit like, ooh, that's a little bit near to the knuckle. No, as I say, it is a kids' film. There's nothing really. There's certainly anything more than just talking about marrying this, young girl or whatever. But it's interesting watching it now and kind of like picking up on those things. Obviously, if you look back at history, yes, people did get married very, very young, and they're sort of teens and even sometimes earlier than that. So but this isn't a historical film. So again, you got lots of action, lots of kind of monsters, mainly lifted from other films. Got zombies in it, again lifted from other films. Eventually, you've got our heroes meet kind of like a little dwarf, a mermaid, and the majority of them will go back to the kingdom and kind of rescue all the kids that have been held kidnapped there, and have a kind of a big battle and defeat the bad guys. The music is by James Horner, and that music was originally written for Battle Beyond the Stars, and it kind of, again, that was used in sort of other fantasy films as well. It kind of fits this sort of type of film, and it's quite an exciting score. He's been used in countless, I think, Roger Corman films, and but it kind of fits this thing, as do the sort of lifts from the other sort of fantasy films that it takes from. Now, like I said, it is a very cheaply made film. Certainly the bits that are originally shot from this film do seem almost cheaper than the already cheap scenes from things like Deathstalker and Sorceress. There's a scene where Cor the Conqueror, played by Svenson, kind of gets kidnapped and coerced to try and marry this sort of like female ogre type thing, and obviously the mask just looks like paper mache, basically. But it's all done in this kind of a very sort of like sense of fun. I don't think kids these days would be interested in it, to be quite honest with you, because they probably are a bit more demanding back when I was a kid. But I still I can't help but still enjoy this film. It is definitely one of those sort of so bad it's good type films, and it's kind of it's a cheesy, it's a fun ride. I did enjoy it, even watching it now, though, when I'm an adult, I kind of still, didn't get bored of it, basically, and I still enjoyed it. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. It did spawn a sequel as well, that is kind of unrelated to this film, to be honest with you, but, it bears the same name. Anyway, have you seen it? Leave me a comment, and what did you think was the best sort of fantasy film, not including all the sort of the big budget Conan ones. I'm talking about the B movies in here. So what was your favourite fantasy B movie of yesteryear? Leave me a comment, and I look forward to seeing you next time. See you later.